Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have a Los Angeles Lakers video for you. Now we're going to talk about a whole plethora of topics, mainly Myles Turner somehow finding his way to the Los Angeles Lakers. But before we get into the video, guys, if you enjoy it, hit that like button, hit that sub button. I greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the algorithm. Lakers, tough season, man. 42-30, first round exit. LeBron has never been knocked out of the first round ever. So this is going to be a very interesting offseason. They're definitely going to tinker with a whole bunch of different things. Mainly, you got Dennis Schroeder. There's a whole bunch of decisions they have to make. But sitting at 42-30, they still held the best defensive rating in the NBA. So a healthy LeBron and a healthy AD, you got to think they'll find themselves back in the NBA Finals. But let's talk about some ways Myles Turner can become a Los Angeles Laker. Now, the first step is kind of trying to re-sign Andre Drummond. Now, this is going to be a huge issue because you got to sign him for under $6 million. And Andre Drummond, we don't really know if he is going to be willing to take that, if he's not going to be willing to take that, if he's going to chase a max contract or something close to in free agency to see if some team will take that bait. But step one's got to be re-sign Andre Drummond. Step two is trade Kyle Kuzma. Now let's talk about Kyle Kuzma here. He had to adjust coming into a new role off the bench, played in fewer minutes, led to a huge drop in his scoring at 12.8. But his effort on defense last season really showed some promising potential. He helped the Lakers off the bench on their way to win the title. Now, this season, Kuzma, he averaged nearly the same points as the previous season, shot a little better from three, 36.1%, and he even had a career year in effective field goal percentage at 53.3%. But once the injuries began to pile up with Davis and James, Kuzma definitely stepped up his game. He put up 14.5 points, 6.7 rebounds, 2.4 assists during that stretch. However, the playoffs were just a completely different story. I mean, just about every single Los Angeles Lakers struggled. I'd even say LeBron struggled greatly. But Kuzma, I mean, it was absolutely despicable. It was disgusting to watch. There were some games he didn't even score a point. He averaged 6.3 points. He shot 29.2% from the field, and he completed just 17.4% from the field. The Suns took advantage of injuries. Yeah, AD and LeBron, LeBron not being 100% and AD getting knocked out. But Kuzma, 6.3 points per game? They're going to need a lot more from him. 3-year extension kicking in at $13 million per year. It's not too much money, but for what he looked like in the playoffs, that is way too much money. Now, there does not seem to be too much of a market for Kuzma at this current time. So unless something happens, he could find himself back in LA. However, let's explore the possibility of him getting traded to the Indiana Pacers. So the Lakers here in this hypothetical give up a first-round pick, Kyle Kuzma, and then Marc Gasol. In return, they get Myles Turner. Now, Myles Turner's on a very good contract right here. Right now, he's making less than $18 million for the next 2 years. He's 6'11", great stretch big, led the league in blocks on the season. Take a look at his season this year, 12.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds per game. On his career, he is about 12.7 points and 6.6, but really defensively is where he makes his biggest impact. Myles Turner would help this team out a lot because he can also stretch the floor. That's something you cannot forget about Myles Turner. Now, this is a big what if, because what if they don't trade Kuzma? What if they can't trade Kuzma? What if the Pacers aren't interested in Kuzma? However, with Myles Turner, the Pacers are paying Sabonis, they're paying Malcolm Brogdon. So, in my opinion, Myles Turner is that piece that they're going to let go because he's going to want some money when his contract is up here in 2 years. Now, on the season, Myles Turner shot pretty solid from three, 36%. He is a career 35% shooter. Now, if they were to not trade Kyle Kuzma, I would not be – I'm not a Laker guy, but that wouldn't be too bad. Kyle Kuzma just has to improve a couple of things. He's 6'10", he's 221 pounds. He's got a slender frame. He's very athletic. He's a great cutter. And when teams are focused more on LeBron James and Anthony Davis, also Dennis Schroeder, who's the primary ball handler on the court, it leaves a lot more opportunities to cut and have more open shots for Kyle Kuzma. So it was good that he improved from three. It was good that he had an effective year just shooting the ball. Now let's take a look at the 2018-2019 season. Kuzma was a very dynamic cutter. He gave the Lakers a 1.22 points per possession with plays that ended with him cutting. Now last season it was down to a 1.13, and then this season it was a 1.05. So just the frequency of cuts dipped, and then the effectiveness of cuts dipped. Now, cutting to the basket should be a huge part of Kyle Kuzma's game, especially when James is on the floor. If LeBron's on the floor, I mean, he's going to get doubled sometimes. They're just going to be more focused on him. They're going to clog up that paint. It should open up more lanes for Kuzma. So that's the big what if right now is, can they even trade for Myles Turner at this current moment? Because do the Pacers want to take that gamble on Kyle Kuzma? Now, I'm not a Pacer fan, but I think if I'm a Pacer fan, I'm looking at this trade and it's relatively enticing. Because like I said, you have to pay Malcolm Brogdon, you got to pay Domantas Sabonis, and Myles Turner appears to be that odd man out. He's still relatively young. He's still super young. And he's just 24 years old, and he's going to want a fat contract. But the Lakers, they could only use it. I mean, the next 2 years using Myles Turner would be absolutely huge for him. Not only is a huge defensive presence, as I had just mentioned earlier in the video. I mean, this dude literally 3.4 blocks per game this season. No one even came close to him. On his career, he averages 2.2 blocks per game. 3 years ago, he averaged 2.7 blocks per game. And you got to keep in mind, these 3.4 blocks per game were in 31 minutes. It's just very efficient. He only played in 47 games this year. Myles Turner would take an already good defensive team to an even better defensive level. However, what I really like about Myles is his ability to stretch the floor. Now, Andre Drummond, in my eyes, he's not a starter. He's not a starter anymore. Now, maybe you can start him with certain matchups, but if you have a guy like Myles Turner at his height, with his athleticism, with his defensive ability, I mean, this is the answer right here. You can stretch the floor. You can help clog the paint, or not clog the paint. You can help clog the paint for opposing teams. I mean, this is the guy. This is the guy. So I'm really curious if Lakers fans would be down for this. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, and let me know if you'd like to see Myles Turner in a Laker uniform.